In this video, I'm going to talk about one of my African American fantasy titles. And the book I'm going to be talking about is The Temptation of John Haynes. The Temptation of John Haynes was published in 2011 under my SJS Direct imprint, and it was the second title that I published under the SJS Direct imprint that I established in 2009. Creatively, I believe The Temptation of John Haynes is one of my best novels. On this story, I learned how to, work on certain writing techniques, and I learned how to put certain things together regarding plots and structures and storylines. But The Temptation of John Haynes is really a story. It's a Christian fiction fantasy story, but what makes it interesting is that it's about compromise and choice. And in the story of The Temptation of John Haynes, we have this man, John Haynes, the lead character, who is tempted by the devil to make a compromise. But on the flip side of it, we have the heroine, Easteen, who is also being tempted by the devil. But a lot of people don't see how both characters are being, tempted by the devil at the same time. The John Haynes character is being tempted, by being given all these riches and all of this, executive job and money and power. And the Easteen character is being tempted more on a spiritual level of morals and ethics. And the reason why I did that was to show, how people are just tempted on different levels, and the type of compromises that they make to get what they want, and if they would make compromises that they want. That's why I put on the back, this on the blurb. It says, "Death kills the flesh, but compromise kills the soul." Because what really destroys people is not death. I mean, when I read in the Bible a long time ago, it said that don't worry about death. I mean, the compromise is 10 times worse, because what you're doing is you're betraying your internal beliefs and your core values. And if anybody can betray their internal beliefs and their core values, then they're really in trouble, because that means that you can be bought and sold. And that's really what I believed what a sellout was. A sellout is a person who betrays, their beliefs, their core values, and the ideas that pertain to their own personal identity. And this is what, the great challenge is. This is why the Lucifer character sends Easteen to go after the John Haynes character. He sends her to go try to get him to betray his core beliefs and his core values. But, the great twist is that while she's doing this, she has to contemplate and think about her own beliefs and core values. And, it all relates to God, because, I always believe that just as the devil is sending, his demons out to destroy you, Christians can be an example, to other people. So it's it's a two-way street, as I've always seen it. Just as evil is sending something to destroy you, good people can set an example of others of what they can be, and and maybe that can persuade them to see a different perspective. I mean, when I looked at most Christian fiction titles, they always have it where the bad guy is always he's always sending people out to destroy these so-called good Christians. But I wanted to make it more of a two-way street, where the Christian person isn't also being tempted. The demon is also being tempted as well. And the whole thing is that the question that you ask as you read the story is, which one is going to compromise first, and which one is going to take that change. Which one is going to either compromise, or which one is going to change? Because I always found most Christian fiction titles to be really hokey, when you have it where, the good Christian, he comes in and he makes the person change, but then the other person doesn't change the evil person, but the good person always stays the same. It doesn't really give you a path of growth that's natural and organic. I really wanted to show how both characters changed and grew as a result of this experience, and how each one learned from the other, and that ultimately leads to the ultimate choices that they make in this book. Now, The Temptation of John Haynes is as I see it, it's a very powerful novel. It's very thought provoking, and it's a great book. that'll really make you think about, faith and compromise, and um, faith and compromise, and what you believe and what you perceive. It's a book that I wrote, really to get people to understand, how about you know being about faith and compromise. And I really wanted people to think about those things, because people, when I see most things, it's like people just go, oh, it's just like it's something simple. It's like, no, it's a little bit more complex than that. And like with the John Haynes character, I wanted to show, if you give this man $1 million, what's going to happen? I mean, if you give this guy a CEO job at $80 million a year salary, what would happen? Would he compromise his character and his integrity to keep it? Would he betray his beliefs to keep it, or would he, you know, do the right thing? What would he do? Because when I was writing the story, I saw this motivational poster with a Marvel Comics character on it. And it talked about character, and it said, if you really want to test somebody's character, you give them power. And in the case of this book, both of these characters have power, and it's a real test to their character. And we really see, what they do when they have the power in their hands. And at the end of this, and towards the end of the story, we really see, that power is not about money or about, magic or any of this other stuff. It's really about the choices we make, and the power we have. The greatest gift that God gives people is free will. And when He gives you free will, He gives you the power, to make the choices that can change your life. And that was one of the things that, is a major theme in the story, that the ultimate choices these characters have, are the ones that they use to change their life. And I really don't want to give away too much of the story, because it's a great story, and I really want to get more people reading this story, because I believe, again, it's one of the best novels. This is one of the best novels I've ever written. Some people will tell me that, All About Marilyn was the best thing I ever wrote, and The Thetas is one of the best things I ever wrote. But I really believe in this story wholeheartedly, because it was a story that, this was the story that I really grew as a writer. Writing, I really grew putting this story together, because this is the story where I, refined my story model. I refined a lot of my techniques, and I learned how to use, literary elements like symbolism, irony, foreshadowing. I knew how to use them somewhat, and I used them to a degree with the previous novel I'd written, called The Cassandra Cookbook, A Recipe for Success. But I really refined a lot of those techniques in this novel, and this one is a really fast-paced book. I mean, some people have told me they've read it in 2 days. Some people have told me they've read it, in 3 days. And most people who've read it have enjoyed it. And I really want to get more people reading it. What people don't know is that, this very same book, when I submitted it to trade publishers, Temptation of John Haynes got close to 500 rejections. A lot of people didn't understand what genre it was in. They didn't understand what it fit. But when I published it myself, it got a lot of positive reviews and a lot of positive feedback. And a lot of people, religious and non-religious, enjoyed the story, and they saw, what I was trying to say, about God giving us the ultimate choices, and that our choices is power, and how that free will, is ultimately leads to gives us the power to make the choices that can change our lives. And that, and another thing that I put in the story was that God did not want anybody, to lose their soul, even the demon. That was a big question that I put in the story, is that, does God love demons? And that was one of the points I was making, that even as the devil was sending Easting to go destroy John Haynes, you could see in one way that, God could have been sent to send John Haynes to help Easton. And that's one of the points that I was putting in, because I always believe that every soul is precious, and God does not want anybody, to perish. And, He'll even go that far, as even sending a Christian person to go walk in the path of a sinner, and be that example for them, so that they can see that, there is a different way, and that they can change, and that they can, move their lives forward. And that was one of the things that I put in the story, because I always said to myself, I mean, a lot of people think, oh, the demon is out to destroy people, but, what if does God want the demons to be destroyed? No, I don't really believe that. I always believe that, demons, just like humans, always had choices, and that was one of the points that I wanted to make in the story, because I always believe that, because I had watched a lot of fantasy stuff like Buffy the Vampire Slayer and things like that, and they always had the vampires and stuff. They were considered demons, but they looked human, they acted human, and that's one of the things that I put in the story, is that they were just as human as the human beings, and just if the human had a choice, then why shouldn't the demon have a choice as well of which path they want to choose? And that was one of the points that I wanted to put in the story, and I wanted people to think about, is that this is a two-way street, and just as the devil is trying to destroy you, God is also trying to save you. So it's something that most people don't think about, and they don't think that abstractly, but it truly is a two-way street. And just as you give your life, just as you are born in sin, you have a choice, to give your life to Christ and to move and to take His gift of salvation. And this gift is here, and it's just that some people can't see it, and sometimes God has to bring people to be in your way, so that you can, in your pathway, so that you can see the gift of salvation that He has for you. And this is something that I wanted to be a key plot point in the story, and I wanted readers to understand that key plot point. A lot of people, they just think it's just a fantasy story or a Christian fantasy story, but Temptation of John Haynes, it has a lot of levels on it. It's very, I designed it to be somewhat cerebral. I wanted people, to think about, what's going on in the story, and how it relates to today, because I always understood that, science fiction and fantasy, always have a commentary on society. And I really wanted to make, a comment about a relationship with God, and the relationship, people have with God and the world. And that's what I wanted to do with this story. I really wanted to make that type of comment, that this is a two-way street, and just as the devil is trying to destroy you, God is trying to save you. And, it's not God's will that anybody perish. It's not God's will that anybody lose their soul. And that was the whole point of what I was trying to say in this story. And it's a story that I actually started writing the story in 2005, and it took me all the way to 2011 to get it published, because again, I got 500 rejections on it. A lot of people, they just did not want to take the story. They just did not understand, what the concept was. But when I published it myself again in 2011, it got a lot of positive responses. It got a lot of positive feedback. And I just want people to, get a better understanding of what the story is, what the story is about, and, get a sense of the characters and the ideas that are behind them. I really believe in this story. It was one of those stories that is close to my heart, because it was a story that really meant a lot to. I mean, all my stories, they mean a lot to me, but it's a story close to my heart, because a lot of it comes from personal experience, and a lot of it comes from ideas that I have had about Christianity and my relationship with God, and it's something that you know something that I wanted people think about regarding fantasy, because a lot of people just think fantasy is one way, but there are other different aspects of fantasy, and fantasy is always designed again to make a social commentary about society. And I really wanted to make a commentary about people's relationships with God and good and evil with this story. You can pick up The Temptation of John Haynes in paperback on Amazon.com or Barnes and Noble. Well, it's on Amazon.com now because I had a distribution issue. You can pick up The Temptation of John Haynes on Amazon.com in paperback. It is also available on Kindle Unlimited. And if you have Amazon Prime, you can pick up The Temptation of John Haynes on Kindle Unlimited for free. This is a great book, and I'm really urging you to go out and pick it up. It's a fast-paced read. I know it's 400 pages, but it's 400 fast-paced pages, and you will be able to read it in a day or two. It's very compelling, and it's very thought-provoking, and I'm really urging you to go out and get it. The Temptation of John Haynes, again, is available on Amazon.com in paperback, and it's also available on Kindle Unlimited, and if you have Amazon Prime, you can borrow it for free.